Thanksgiving at my aunt's place always felt like walking into a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided. The same plastic tablecloth, the same burnt rolls nobody touched, the same cousins pretending to care about each other's lives. My brother Ryan sat at the head of the table like he owned it, which was funny because he hadn't owned anything in years. Not a car, not a lease, not even the polo shirt he was wearing, which I recognized from my father's closet. I was cutting into dry turkey when he stood up, tapping his beer bottle with a fork like some kind of toastmaster. "Hey everyone, listen up. I've got news." I didn't look up. Announcements from Ryan never ended well for anyone except Ryan. "So you all know Elena's condo downtown, right? The nice one on Lakeshore Drive?" My fork stopped. My mother leaned in, already smiling. "Well," he said, pausing for effect, "I found a buyer. Sold it last month. Got $750,000. Cash deal." The table erupted. My aunt clapped. My mother reached across and squeezed his arm. My father nodded slowly, the way he did when he wanted to look wise. "That's my boy," my father said. "Smart move. That place was just sitting there collecting dust anyway." I set down my fork carefully because my hands were starting to shake and I didn't want anyone to see. "You sold my condo." Ryan blinked. He actually blinked, like I'd said something rude. "Technically it was still under your name, yeah, but you've been stuck in that hospital for 3 months. You weren't using it. The market's insane right now, so I jumped on it. You should be thanking me." My mother nodded. "He's right, Elena. You should be grateful someone in this family takes initiative while you're lying around feeling sorry for yourself." Lying around. I'd been in a rehabilitation center recovering from a spinal surgery after a car accident that nearly killed me. 3 fractured vertebrae, 2 surgeries, weeks of physical therapy just to stand upright without screaming. But sure. Lying around. Ryan kept going, explaining how he'd handled the paperwork, found the buyer through some guy he knew, moved fast before the market turned. He even said he'd already deposited the funds into our family's shared account, the one my parents set up years ago that I'd stopped contributing to because I didn't trust any of them with my money. "Which account?" I asked. "The family one. Dad manages it. Don't worry, it's safe." My father smiled. "Already moved some of it into a better fund. You'll see returns by spring." I looked around the table. Every face was satisfied. My cousin poured more wine. My aunt passed the stuffing. Nobody thought this was wrong. Nobody even hesitated. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. I excused myself to the hallway and answered. "Miss Vasquez?" The voice was sharp, professional. "This is Detective Morales with the Chicago PD Financial Crimes Unit. We've received a complaint from a title company regarding a property sale on Lakeshore Drive registered under your name. Can you confirm you authorized the transaction?" "No," I said. "You're certain?" "I'm certain. I've been in a rehab facility since August. I didn't authorize anything." Silence for 2 seconds. Then, "Stay where you are. Don't alert anyone. We'll be in contact shortly." I walked back into the dining room and sat down. Ryan was laughing about something, his arm draped over the back of his chair like a man with no worries. "Everything okay?" my mother asked. "Fine," I said. Ryan grinned. "See? Everything's fine. You stressed too much, Elena. That's probably why your back gave out." I smiled at him, the kind of smile I'd perfected during months of pain management, the one that hid everything. "You're probably right." He raised his bottle. "To family looking out for each other." Everyone clinked. I touched my glass to the table and said nothing. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. My aunt frowned. "Who's that? I didn't invite anyone else." I stood. "I'll get it." When I opened the door, 2 plainclothes officers stood on the porch. Behind them, a marked unit sat at the curb with lights off. Detective Morales held up a badge. "Miss Vasquez? That's me." He glanced past me into the house. "Is your brother Ryan Vasquez here?" "He is. We have questions regarding the sale of your property. Mind if we come in?" I stepped aside. Their shoes echoed on the tile floor. The laughter in the dining room stopped mid-sentence. Ryan's smile disappeared the moment he saw the badges. My mother dropped her fork. My father's jaw tightened. "What the hell is this?" my father said. Morales didn't flinch. "Mr. Vasquez, we're investigating a fraudulent property transfer. We have reason to believe documents were forged in the sale of a condominium belonging to your daughter." Ryan stood up too fast, knocking over his beer. "That's ridiculous. Elena asked me to handle it. She was in the hospital. She couldn't deal with anything. I looked at him. I never asked you to sell my home. For the first time, I saw something crack behind his eyes. Not guilt, just the realization that his script wasn't working. Morales asked to see any related paperwork. Ryan pointed to a folder in his jacket, which he'd brought to Thanksgiving dinner like a prop. The detective flipped through it, his expression flat. "These signatures," he said, holding up a page. "Are these yours, Miss Vasquez?" I looked. My name was there, but the handwriting was wrong. The loops on the E were too tight. The Z trailed off in a way mine never did. She practiced, but not well enough. "No," I said. "Those aren't mine." Ryan's voice pitched higher. "She's confused. She's been on medication. She doesn't remember." Morales closed the folder. "Sir, we'll need you to come with us for further questioning." My mother shot up. "You can't take him on Thanksgiving. This is a family matter." "Ma'am, forging federal documents isn't a family matter." They escorted Ryan out. He didn't resist, but he looked back at me with an expression I'll never forget. Not anger, not sadness, just disbelief that I hadn't played along. My mother followed them to the porch, shouting about lawyers. My father poured himself whiskey and said nothing. My aunt quietly started clearing plates. When I finally left, the November air bit through my coat. I sat in my car and watched them put Ryan in the back of the cruiser. He stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. I started the engine and drove back to my temporary apartment near the rehab center, the one I'd rented because my brother had sold the only home I ever owned. The next morning, Morales called. "We've confirmed the title transfer was processed through a company that doesn't exist. Your brother created it 6 weeks ago. He forged your signature on 4 separate documents and used your social security number to verify identity with the title company. How did the title company not catch it? They should have. We're investigating them too. But your brother was convincing. He brought medical records showing you were incapacitated and a fake power of attorney." "He had my medical records?" "Looks like he pulled them from your parents' house. Your mother had copies in a filing cabinet." My stomach turned, so she knew. "We can't confirm that yet," Morales said carefully, "but we're looking into it." After the call, I sat on the edge of my bed. My back ached from yesterday, the kind of deep throb that reminded me every day what that accident had taken. But this pain was different. This one sat in my chest and didn't respond to medication. I spent the next 2 days going through everything. Bank statements, property records, emails. The military taught me nothing, but surviving a spinal injury taught me patience. I combed through every document I could access and found a pattern. Ryan had started laying groundwork 2 months before the sale. Small charges to a document preparation service, a payment to a notary in Indiana who conveniently stopped returning calls, an email from a burner account with my name on it, sent to the buyer's attorney, confirming my consent. The email had been CC'd to my parents' shared address. They knew, both of them. I called Morales and told him what I'd found. He listened without interrupting, then said, "Send everything. We'll subpoena the email records." That afternoon, my mother called. I let it ring 5 times before answering. "Elena," she said, her voice sharp, "you need to stop this nonsense. Ryan made a mistake, but we don't air family business in public. He stole my home, Mom. He was trying to help. You were lying in that hospital racking up bills. Someone had to do something. So selling my $750,000 condo without my knowledge is help? You weren't using it." I closed my eyes. The same words Ryan had used. Rehearsed. "Did you know about the fake power of attorney?" Silence. Then, "I don't know what you're talking about. Your email address is on the forged documents, Mom. You were CC'd." She hung up. I wasn't surprised. Disappointment doesn't feel like a punch anymore when you've been hit enough times. It just settles into your bones like weather. By the end of the week, the story had leaked. A local news outlet ran a short piece about a property fraud case on Lakeshore Drive. No names, but anyone in our neighborhood could figure it out. My father texted me once, one line, "You're tearing this family apart." I typed back, "It was already torn." He didn't respond. The investigation moved fast. Morales told me that Ryan's buyer, a real estate investor named Gerald Patterson, had come forward voluntarily. He'd paid $750,000 in good faith and had no idea the sale was fraudulent. His lawyer was cooperating fully. "What happens to Mr. Patterson?" I asked. "He'll be reimbursed through the restitution process. He's not at fault." That mattered to me. Whoever bought my home didn't deserve to suffer for my brother's greed. A few days later, Morales showed up at my apartment with a thick envelope. New developments, he said. Your brother wasn't just selling your property. He'd been using your identity for months. Credit cards, a car loan, even a small business registration under a variation of your name. My legs went weak. I sat down. How much? Total exposure. About $200,000 in debt under your name, on top of the property sale. I stared at the wall. He hadn't just stolen my home, he'd stolen my future, one signature at a time, while I was lying in a hospital bed, learning how to walk again. Morales continued. We're also looking at your parents' accounts. There are transfers from your brother's fake company into an investment fund managed by your father. It's not a lot, $40,000 spread over several months, but it's enough to suggest knowledge. So they profited. That's what the evidence shows. Are they going to be charged? Depends on the DA. But we're building the case. After he left, I locked the door and sat in the dark for a long time. I didn't cry. I hadn't cried since the accident. Not when they told me I might not walk again. Not when I took my first step and it felt like fire. I wasn't going to cry over people who'd chosen money over me. The next 2 weeks were a blur of depositions, paperwork, and physical therapy appointments that felt almost peaceful by comparison. At least in PT, the pain had a purpose. Ryan's lawyer tried to negotiate. He claimed Ryan had acted under financial desperation, that he'd been pressured by debt, and that he believed I would have approved the sale if I'd been conscious. His attorney even floated the idea that my hospitalization made me an unreliable witness. Morales shut that down with bank records showing Ryan had spent $60,000 of the sale proceeds on a boat. A boat. While I was learning to stand upright, my brother bought a boat. The court date arrived on a gray Tuesday in January. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and burnt coffee. Ryan sat across the aisle in a suit I'd never seen before, probably bought with my money. He didn't look at me. His lawyer opened with a speech about family bonds, financial hardship, and the tragedy of miscommunication. The prosecution responded with evidence. Screens filled with forged signatures, fake emails, bank transfers, the boat receipt, and my medical records that Ryan had used to prove I was incapacitated. When I took the stand, the courtroom went quiet. The prosecutor asked simple questions. Did I authorize the sale? No. Did I give Ryan power of attorney? No. Did I know about the fake company he'd created? No. Then the defense attorney stood. Miss Vasquez, isn't it true your brother visited you multiple times in the hospital? He visited once, I said. For 20 minutes. He asked where I kept my house keys. He asked for your keys? I thought he wanted to water my plants. Something shifted in the room. Even the judge looked up from her notes. And did he mention the property at any point during that visit? He asked if I'd ever thought about selling. I said no. He changed the subject. The defense attorney sat down. He had nothing left. The prosecution closed with something that stuck. This is not a case of family misunderstanding. This is calculated theft from a vulnerable person by the people she trusted most. The verdict came 3 days later. Guilty on all counts. Wire fraud, identity theft, forgery. 5 years federal prison. Full restitution of $750,000 plus damages. Ryan stood still when the judge read the sentence. No outburst, no tears. Just that same blank stare he'd always had when things didn't go his way, like the world was being unfair to him specifically. As they led him out, he turned and looked at me. I expected hatred. Instead, he mouthed 2 words, I'm sorry. I didn't know if I believed him, but I nodded once, because that's what you do when someone finally says the thing they should have said from the beginning, even if it's too late. My parents were charged 2 weeks later, conspiracy to commit fraud and money laundering. My mother cried on the courthouse steps for the cameras. My father stared at the ground. Their lawyer issued a statement calling it a misunderstanding. The judge disagreed. 2 years probation, $40,000 restitution, community service. My mother sent me a letter afterward. Short, handwritten. You chose strangers over blood. I hope you can live with that. I folded it once and put it in a drawer. Not the trash, the drawer. Because someday I might need a reminder of exactly why I stopped answering her calls. The process of getting my condo back took 3 more months. Legal paperwork, title corrections, restitution transfers. Gerald Patterson, the buyer, was gracious about it. He even called me personally. I'm sorry this happened to you, he said. My wife and I had already started decorating. We loved that place. I know, I said. And I'm sorry it happened to you too. He told me they'd already found another property. No hard feelings, he said. I hope you get to go home. Going home. Those words meant something different now. The day I got the keys back, I drove downtown alone. The Lake Shore Drive traffic was thick, the skyline silver against a winter sky. I parked in the underground garage and took the elevator up. My hands shook when I turned the key. Inside, it was empty. Patterson's furniture was gone, but the bones of the place were the same. The wide windows overlooking the lake. The kitchen counter where I used to eat cereal standing up before work. The bedroom where I'd spent my last night before the accident, not knowing it would be months before I came back. I walked through every room slowly, touching walls, running my fingers along the window frames. Some things were different. New paint in the bathroom, a patch spot on the ceiling, but the view was the same. The lake stretched out in every direction, gray and endless, and for a moment I just stood there watching the water move. My phone buzzed. Morales. Congratulations, he said. You're officially home. Doesn't feel real yet. It will. Give it a day or two. After we hung up, I sat on the floor in the empty living room. No furniture, no noise, just the hum of the building and the faint sound of wind against glass. I thought about everything it had cost to sit in this spot again. Not just money, trust, family, the version of myself that used to believe people were basically good if you gave them enough chances. That version was gone, but maybe that was okay. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt slowly. New furniture, piece by piece, a couch from a vintage store, a kitchen table I assembled myself, which took 4 hours and a YouTube tutorial, books on shelves, a single framed photo on the nightstand, not of my family, just the lake at sunrise, taken the morning I first moved in years ago. Physical therapy continued. My back improved. Not perfect, probably never would be, but strong enough. I started walking the lakefront again, slow laps that got longer every week. The cold didn't bother me. After everything, weather was just weather. One evening, about a month after moving back, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Elena? The voice was thin, distant. It was Ryan, calling from Federal Holding. I'm here, I said. I know you don't want to hear from me. You're right. Silence. Then, I messed up. Not just the house. Everything. I've been jealous of you since we were kids. You got the grades, the career, the condo. I got nothing. And instead of fixing my own life, I tried to take yours. I didn't say anything. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I just needed you to know I understand what I did. Finally, I leaned against the window, watching the city lights reflect off the water. You stole from me while I was learning to walk again, Ryan. I know. You used Mom and Dad to cover for you. I know that too. A long pause, the institutional noise behind him, doors buzzing, distant voices, filled the silence between us. I hope you mean it, I said, but meaning it doesn't undo it. Yeah, he said quietly. I'm figuring that out. Take care of yourself, I said. The line went quiet. Then a click, and he was gone. I set the phone down and looked out at the lake. The water was black under the night sky, but the city lights painted it with streaks of gold and white. Somewhere out there, boats were moving, people were laughing, and the world kept turning whether or not my family was part of it. I poured a glass of wine, the cheap kind I'd always bought, and sat in my new chair by the window. The restitution papers were stacked neatly on the kitchen counter. The title was in my name again. The locks had been changed. I opened my journal for the first time since the accident and wrote one line. The people who are supposed to protect you don't always deserve the key to your door. I closed it and leaned back, listening to the quiet. Not the heavy silence of a hospital room or the tense silence of a courtroom. Just the soft, ordinary quiet of a home that belonged to me again. Outside, the first snow of the season started falling, slow and steady. I watched it settle on the railing, on the rooftops, on the lake that stretched beyond the glass like a promise I'd finally learned to keep for myself. For the first time in a long time, I didn't brace for what came next. There was no next. There was just now, and now was enough.